Hey guys, it's Runchuks from Love the Spot. This week my guest was Fedor Holz. Well, I can tell you that this was one of the most interesting and inspiring conversations I've had so far on the podcast. Fedor shared so much about his way to success in poker. I suppose most of you know that in a relatively short time he managed to become one of the best and most successful poker players in the world. He talks about working with a team and how he gathered a group of players around him. He also talks about the importance of strong mental game and shares some tips on improving it. We go into some philosophical questions and there's so much more. As always, we put timestamps in the description, so jump around the topics if you feel like it. And I hope you enjoyed at least as much as I did. And we're live. Alright guys, super exciting episode today. We have Fedor Holz with us. Fedor, hi. So great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so today, so many topics I want to discuss with you, and they are all around basically the way you found the success, the way you imagined that you can do it, your tremendous self-belief, the way you arranged or gathered a team around yourself, and in general, your approach. I think there's so much everybody can learn from that. In many ways you innovated the approach of, how to achieve success in poker. So these are the broad topics, and where shall we start? The first thing that comes to mind, because we had Steffen on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he said
some of it.
Right, awesome. And he said one thing which I found really fascinating. I was thinking, whenever I have you on, I really want to ask your opinion on this, because Steffen said something along the lines of that you was the one who sort of arranged the team, right? You picked the people, sort of, and you were the one who basically made the whole team click. And by team, I of course mean all the other German crew guys that you had, Stefan, Dominic, Ben CB, all the others.
Mm-hmm.
How do you reflect on that? Like, building this team, how did it happen? Was it deliberate?
So it was less of a super well thought through master plan and more of just something I enjoy doing. And in the process, I didn't even realize how unique it was compared to how I look backwards. Actually, I want to give credit to the crew, which is maybe getting a bit forgotten now, but like the first German crew before us, there was kind of a generation of Germans before us. They practiced a similar togetherness, a similar approach. So it was like Fabian Quas, Rankemeyer, Phil Grusem, Koganov, Nick. There were like a couple people, they were traveling, like they were crushing online. They were traveling the high roller scene. It was mostly maybe like, my first years and like a couple years before that. So the more golden times, that they were like crushing big time too. And I think what was different in my case was that the era I started playing in was mostly online and it was tougher. So when we were playing mid stakes, Black Friday already happened. So there were no Americans, no soft games, or like less soft games. And so our approach was just more the internet kids who have to fight a little harder. And I think the selection was a bit harder too. Um, and there were less of these random come up stories of, you just satellite into a tournament and you win $1 million. And then from there, like, just didn't exist. There was these tournaments didn't exist anymore. The prize pools were smaller. The tournaments were tougher. So overall, there were less these moneymaker stories and more just grinders who grinded their way up and then just through continuous good play amassed a decent bankroll. and continue to improve and continue to play higher. So for me personally, what I think my unique approach was, I never was the grinder to just sit down and like grind 60 hours a week and do that for 2 years. Like this was not something I really enjoyed. I always loved the game and the progress of improving in a game. And so the biggest part for me is also to learn the game. So I want to talk to other people about how they do it and see their perspective, and especially like both weaker players, better players, top players. Like I don't, doesn't matter. It's just about, for me, it's really a lot about this interaction. And I think what I generally have is a good intuition for a high level, like a level of energy. So does this fit together? Is this synergetic? Or does this, do these different people, like, do they work well together? And so I was just super active in forums. Like back then there were German forums, and like then Poker Strategy, and then a bit of 2+2. And I was just constantly interacting with people and picking out people to then communicate with them over hands. And then most of it happened via Skype. So I had like probably a couple hundred people I was in touch with irregularly. And then, 20, 30 people I was chatting to regularly. And then out of these, like there was this core group of people that I talked to like probably 2, 3, 4 hours a day. So it was really intense collaboration on that level. And that's how the team formed.
Very interesting. You know what I find especially interesting here? Because it's always easy to do something that's already been done. When somebody runs a 4-minute mile or something like that, then everybody knows, okay, it can be done. So that's our new goal. Let's train for that. Before the way you approached the study process and before the way you approached poker career as such, there were not many examples. I mean, you've mentioned obviously this group of live players from Germany that were doing sort of the same thing, but it wasn't so well known, right? So
Yeah.
if we think about it, like a general poker player, approaches poker in a way that pretty much puts them in a rat race, right? You basically go into this routine of, like you said, playing 60 hours a week, and just let's go and let's continue, and that's what we're doing here, right? So to make a decision of actually doing completely something different, that's incredible to me, because now it wouldn't be surprising. I mean, there's so many other teams sprouting up, and so many other people try to follow your footsteps, but before you lay the footsteps, you sort of have to kind of arrive at the conclusion that, listen, I left poker, I left to study the game, I don't want to play 60 hours a day, I'm going to improve and I'm going to become the best I can. But where does the belief of, I can be one of the best, where does it come from?
I never, to be honest, and I can't remember really formulating this belief. So it was mostly, to me in the beginning, I think the reason why I grew so much. So the first 1-2 years I was struggling, but then the 1-2 years after that, when I had a foundation, when I found my environment, and when I started playing mid and high stakes online, I think the thing that really propelled me forward is, I don't think so much as results in terms of how most other people think about it. So for me, it's this feeling of growth that I really was chasing. And this I could only achieve by getting better. And so it wasn't so much as like I want to be the best, as more like I want to have that feeling of getting better. So it's not, it's not the same. I didn't want to be the best for the sake of being the best. I just wanted to become better, like every day, every week, every month. And then the result after 3 years, 4 years of that was I was the best. So it was more about like when I was sitting there and I was like, I want to know how I can improve playing this hand. So I was looking for a solution. Is how can I get input? And then I was like, okay, I was thinking, it's like, how can I, get more input? And then I posted it on forums and I send it to people on Skype and I talked to friends here I played here with, and I talked to my roommate and I um, started to calculate stuff. And I was, like I was exploring all different options, how I can achieve that growth. And so I didn't care so much about the norm. Like I didn't care about the guys. Like I saw a lot of people around me just grinding, but that wasn't a thing that I enjoyed. So I was like, okay, I want to do that, and I focus on improving. And then that was tougher in the beginning because I played less, and therefore I had less short-term results. But in the long term, it was significantly better for me, and I think also for the people around me.
Mm-hmm. All right. So basically, the approach of orienting on the process, on your own growth, as in you're not so focused on how it looks like from outside or what's the bigger goal of like I have to be the best, but more like how you feel about growing every day and fulfilling yourself this way.
And these two things mix, right? Like it was also, I also cared about how it looked from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
but in a different way. I for a long time the financial thing wasn't such a clear. So like a lot of people I see who make, they get to a point, they make 4,000 or 5,000 euros a month, and then they settle with that, and it's totally fine. But this was never a thought for me. There was never a point where I reached, like making 10K a month, and I was just like, oh, like this is more than I need. This is it. I'm gonna settle with this. I'm gonna grind 40 hours a week, and like I'm good. Not even a thought. I wasn't even, there was not even ever a thought. I was like, I was so focused on, okay, how do I move forward? How do I go from here to the next step? And I don't mean that in a way of like I was continuously just, focused on personally growing. It was also a chase. It was also like it's not good enough. Where I'm at is not good enough. So it's this mixture of the part that I really enjoy, the part where I learn and I'm creative and that I love. And there's also this part of this continuous drive of not feeling like it's good enough. I'm not good enough. I need to go further. I need to push harder. So this kind of both together, it interacted, so it's not just one or the other.
Mm-hmm. And when you started playing live tournaments, especially going into the high roller scene for the first time, how did that come about? Like, how did you think, okay, what I'm doing in terms of studies is really gonna benefit me the most by playing these super high roller events?
I mean, I think that was also an approach that showcased out of my mentality. This materialized in how I approach live poker. So I always played higher than I probably should have. And not in terms of my own bankroll, also in my own bankroll, but like I was trying to, I was when I reached, let's say when I had, zero, I wanted to, or like I thought I was a decent player. I was selling action to EPT. I wanted to play EPT. This was in 2013. I remember, I played EPT Monte Carlo. Like I sold lots of action to that, but I just wanted to play. I just want to, feel how it is. Can I beat that? Can I perform there? Then, so it was always in these steps, like building my way up. I wasn't able to play it, but I wanted to find a way. So I sold action to friends. I sold action to my network. I just wanted to make it happen. Then, this goes up in steps. So the next is my first 10K high roller. I remember playing, a 7K high roller in the Caribbean with Igor Kurganov, Reinke Meyer, Fabian Quas, and Philip Grissom. Like at that time, these were like the 4 high roller playing all the 100Ks, like crushing high stakes. So I was shaking playing that. And this was my, this, I just pushed harder. I want to play this. I know this is not EV, everyone else would be like, okay, why are you playing this? I'm like, no, I want to play against them. I want to improve. I want to learn. And so I played that. And then the first big step into the high rollers, I have to send a big thank you there to Johnny and the crew, is like, I was looking to sell action to high rollers. I was like, I think I'm ready. I think this was 2014. And I was like, I want to get in the game. I want to play at the big stakes. Because I think at that time in 2014, I think I was at my absolute peak. Like, I was on all areas. Solvers weren't really a thing. But just from my theoretical knowledge at that time, my exploits, feeling for how players were playing, I just felt like at that time, if I look at my online graphs, I think I was running like over a huge sample with like 100% ROI or something. I think it was just absolute berserking the games. And I just wanted to play higher. And so, and improve and like see how that is, because there's this big live high roller thing that like everyone's playing, but like I'm not part of it. And I think at the time I was probably 20. Like, I think I just turned 20, like 19, 20. And so I sold action to my first 25K. And I remember that very lively because I sold action to a couple 25Ks and I busted, I think, the first 10 or 11 bullets, like just different tournaments. And I was like, I was so results oriented in these. I was like, I can't beat them. Like, something's going wrong. I'm not good enough. They're better than me. But like these guys, the German high rollers, they like a crew around. His name is Johnny. And they put me in and they bought my action. And that was really important. A really important step for me to like get that experience, get in the game and like start playing these higher stakes. And then through that, I kind of brought in the other guys, because I was like, guys, at some point I was like, this is it. This is dream. Like, this is the opportunity we got to get in right now, because we can crush this if we give our best.
Yeah, I remember Steffen was saying that, you were literally pushing him and saying like, Steffen, you have to come here and play this right now. And he was thinking like, what are you talking about? I'm not ready. I can't do it. And like, you're going to crush it.
But it's true, because, I was at that point where I think I'm good at seeing opportunities. I think I have a good like gut feeling around that, of just like, where I can't even quantify it. It's just sometimes it's not even only financially, it's just in different ways. The same way I have a gut feeling for reads. I've always had a good feeling for something is pulling me in that direction. So it's when I play against an opponent, it's just this thing that pops up in my mind, is like, I want to do this, and I can't explain why. I try to rationalize it, but at that time it was the same. It just felt like I got to get in these games. And when I was playing the games, I was like, my friends have to play these games, because this is heaven right now, And for them, in their mindset, it was like 25Ks was like, so absurd. But if they play a Super Tuesday, it's no problem, So I think these 25Ks were softer. And you could make way more money and, like get into totally different stakes, like 50Ks, 100Ks. And these tournaments were just super soft. Like none of these players who played there were online crushers, like just a handful. Lots of live players, lots of fish. So it was amazing times. And I think this push, this I think was one of my things that I brought into the group, is like constantly opening up new opportunities and pushing people towards reaching their limits and exploring new territory.
Absolutely. I mean, it really looks this way to me, because, I mentioned the rat race in the beginning. So many people just get stuck in a sort of predefined career. Let's call it this way. They would choose. They would say, okay, I'm a hold'em cash game player, and that's it. That defines them. They don't seek other opportunities. They don't go out and seek other avenues, And even if to think like for an online tournament player, like you said, you can play Super Tuesday and you feel like, oh, absolutely crushing it. It's great. At the same time, you would have this barrier of not even asking the question of, how about that 25K? How about that 100K? How about that one drop? Because it's just not something that people are used to. They just put themselves in brackets and they don't try to sort of push the boundaries, push the limits in a way.
But I think that was a good example with Steffen. Is like he's like, at the time he was probably the number one player I learned from, because he thought so different to me. And when we were talking together, like we were playing Zoom 500, and you have to imagine it's like we're both crushing it, but like from totally different angles. When we talked about a hand, like he was just always like, yeah, kind of the optimal play, probably something like this mathematically. And I'm just like, yeah, but the guy never has it, and it's just watching this conversation, because I think it expanded our horizon in both ways. Like on the one side, that he started questioning his frameworks, his beliefs, his ideas, and explored new perspectives and opened his mind. And on the other side, that I just fundamentally became a lot more sound, and like that his very, very structured thought process helped me to get more substance to like these feelings that I have, and this intuition. And so I think, this is just one example of a collaboration. And then now imagine you add in 6, 7, 8 other perspectives, and you just get this variety of input that leads to this amazing outcome. So yeah, definitely big.
Yeah, in any group, obviously, the synergy that is created by people with different opinions, people with different approaches is huge. You don't want to be in a group where everybody just agrees on the same things and validates their same beliefs, because you guys don't grow as a group. So yeah, that was definitely a great part of the team that you sort of was part of, or actually probably assembled in a way. It's great to see you. But one thing that I'm curious about, so many people study a lot, right? Studying a lot is not a new thing. It's not a big thing. Everybody does it, or a lot of people do it. But the transition between the knowledge, so you can gain the knowledge theoretically in studies, but to apply it at the poker table in real time, when you have to, limited time, and you have to make the decision based on all the studies, I think that's where you also excel at a pretty good level in a way of, how you structure your decision-making process and how you structure your study process in such a way that you get information that you can practically execute. Did it come naturally to you, or did you sort of develop this process along the way?
I think most things in life are practice. And I also believe that a lot of things, if you're good at something, most of the time you've practiced it without really knowing that you did. So like consciously knowing. So when I look at poker, what I see is, yeah, of course, I haven't played poker before I was 16 or 17. But the things, the skills that I need in poker, I've been practicing since I was a little kid. Like I was constantly solving problems. I loved thinking about geometry, about chess, I loved playing games. I played strategy games. I played lots of computer games. Like, I was constantly exposed to the idea of solving a puzzle, of finding patterns, of finding logics, or like of extrapolation. So like adapting in different situations. So like this flexibility, this mental flexibility, this capacity to be able to abstract from one concept to another concept. I think that's what I've been like enjoying and practicing a big part of my life. So yeah, I think I have a natural gravitation towards it. Maybe a natural ability, but I've also been practicing it way more than most other people. So I think this kind of plays together. And yeah, I don't think it's either or. I don't think you're just, it's just like this and that's it. So I think practice always plays a big role.
Mm-hmm. All right. One thing that I'm also pretty curious about is, you're pretty famous in a sense of, advocating the importance of mental game and advocating the importance of balance in life, and all of these things, which sort of sets you apart from many other people who, go full all in the poker field, and then it's just that the 60-hour weeks every week of the year, no holidays, etc., etc. Whereas you're very vocal about how important these things are, taking breaks, having balance, and all the other things. Famously, you work a lot with the mental game coach.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to expand on the topic of the mental game and how important it is, and the balance?
Sure. So I think it's very important to differentiate. I'm not saying that everyone needs to take breaks, that everyone needs to work with a mental coach. What I'm saying is that I've experienced that I've been pushing myself to do something that I didn't want to do. I've been pushing myself oftentimes to grind when I didn't want to grind. I've been pushing myself to play live when I didn't want to play live. And what does that mean, didn't want to, right? So most of the time it was that I felt I need to play this because it's valuable. And that's more a construct, right? It's the, like, let's say the financial side or the success side. And there's this idea and this high score, and I need to improve this high score. But then it's conflicting with this inner feeling of what do I want, right? Like, so looking at the bigger picture and like taking everything into consideration, what do I feel like doing? And this oftentimes then conflicted with each other. And whenever I prioritized the high score over this inner feeling, I felt disturbance. So I wasn't happy. I was like, it showed in different ways. I was less motivated. I played worse. I just had less fun overall. And what I'm saying is, I think the exploration of this is extremely important, because I think that when you follow what you want to do, then you're happy. And I think now most of the arguments that come is like, yeah, but you can't always do what you want. It's like, okay, yes. But for me, it's my aspiration is to be able to do as much of what I want as I can. Right. So when I was 18, I could do less of what I want. But then I started to continuously do more of what I want to be able to do even more of it. And it's just putting this work toward that's what I'm advocating for, is to don't think about it binary of like either you do what you want or you don't do what you want, but to think about it as it's a continuous process where I want to put my energy towards being as free as I can, like being as much in the flow as I can, doing as many of the things where I feel like I'm exactly in the right place in the right moment right now. And that's why I work with Elliot, because it helps me reflect on how did this feel? How did it feel to play right there? And to prepare me also of like being in the moment right there, and focusing this energy, or like streamlining this energy. So I can see a big difference when I play, when I'm in the like I remember tournaments, I felt like I could, see in there, like inside of them, when I was totally in sync, when I was, an absolute of the top of my game, I felt like I knew their cards. I mean, in a very extreme sense now, but I was so dialed in, 13 hours, no problem. I didn't get tired. I was there, like, and I was playing my absolute best. And when I wasn't, then I played terrible. And I just wanted to, get up and leave. But I I stayed. So that's why I think that the difference between these two states is absolutely massive. And I think it's in everything. I think everything you do in life, if you are, and that's the thing I'm aspiring, I want to be in this state of flow, in this state of power, or energy. And that's what I'm working towards. And I've realized in poker that I've been there a lot of times and I really enjoyed that, but I've also been in that state of I need to do this right now, or I need to make money, or I need to play this game to make money, or to, make more points or whatever, because it's profitable. And to focus on the things that I really want to do, that's something that is very, very important to me.
Mm-hmm. So interesting that, the way you describe these things, everything makes so much sense. And yet, so many people who are playing professionally poker, theoretically, they have all the freedom. They're free to choose what they do with their day. They're free to choose how they spend their time. They're free to choose the path that they're going to take. Yet, so many people just fall into the same sort of tracks and just keep going without questioning what do they really want to do, whether they're doing it just because they're chasing the score, chasing the high score, or just because that's the only thing they can think of doing. So this self-reflection is definitely such an important part, I think, for anybody who's playing poker, especially people who don't have a team around them. Because in a team, you might have somebody who's just going to snap you out of it. Ask you a question like, hey, why you keep doing this? Why you play 60 hours a week? You look like shit. You need a break.
So big,
Right? But a lot of people obviously don't have a group. And I strongly advocate, having a group, and not necessarily only a group of other poker players, but just a group of people that help you reflect on what you're doing and help you, put a perspective on things. If you don't have that group, then having self-reflection is just such a core thing, without which, so many people just burn out by, being stuck at the mid stakes or the low stakes and just spinning the wheels over and over again until it's just too much. Totally. I remember there was a story that you took like a prolonged break, like a five-month break or something like that to go around the world. Can you expand on that? Because if I remember correctly, the story was that you were working really hard on your game. You were playing a lot, and at one point you just realized this is too much. I'm burning out. I need a break. And instead of going to the cinema and going like for a weekend somewhere, you just decide, okay, I'm going to go around the world 5 months. Let's go.
I've done this, like what you described. It was a bit different, but what you described happened at a later point too. So I've taken extended breaks 4 times. The first time was less out of, was a bit more desperate. So the first time I took a long break was in basically January 2013. So I quit my unit like in 2012. I quit my studies. I was playing staked. So two German mid high stakes players were staking me, and they saw a lot of potential in me, but I was performing pretty poorly. And I was also mentally not in a great state. And it was really taking a toll on me to like continuously, like in 2012, I set like the part where I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to play this. I'm going to grind this solidly now. I'm going to start, $2 tournaments. And I just want to move my way up. So I think this was the part where I was like, starting to take it more professionally, like less, like just more strict and more disciplined. And so then a couple months after, I got in touch with these guys and they started staking me for higher stakes. And so I started playing, $50 tournaments like Sunday Million, stuff like this. And I got into makeup quite deep. And I had lots of deep runs, but nothing really nothing really went through, and this really took a toll on my mindset. And so this whole combination of, my surroundings disappointed because or they're, scared or worried is the best word, because I stopped studying, so I quit university, and then staking didn't go well, and I was, and with my friends also, I didn't interact with them much anymore. And so I was like, what's nothing is really working. And so I was frustrated and down, um and so I just felt like I need a change. I need to refresh things somehow. And it was really important. I had a live score in Roswadov at that time, where I made some money for myself. So I had a couple €1,000 to my name, which was really a really big relief for me at that time. And so I booked a flight to South Africa on the, I think, 1st of January or something like that, because I just want to get out. And then I traveled for 4 or 5 months. I've been to South Africa, to Asia, traveled around in Europe, and that was a really, really big, really important change for me, because I moved to Vienna in like 4 or 5 months later, and from then on it just went absolute straight up. I went out of the, I think in May or June I got out of the staking, and then in September I had $1 million. So it was pretty absurd rise.
Wow. Yeah, pretty quick one as well.
It was absolutely insane. It was like, from this point, I mean, you have to imagine, like in 2013, I had maybe a couple $1,000s to my name, and then in 2014 I was playing the highest stakes, won the W Coupe main, started playing howlers. Like, it was just this, I feel like it was a lot of compound stuff. It was everything, adding onto each other. All the pieces fell into their place. The people I was working with, my preparation, my game, my mental game, like playing live and online, I think also really helped me. And then I was in a great environment. I was surrounded with people who supported me. I lived in an apartment that I enjoyed. It was just, I did sports. I was healthy. I was just like, everything was coming together. And then I got really lucky, and these two things, I think I was playing great. I was very lucky, and I was in a great environment, and it just absolutely skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I see we got a bunch of questions in the chat, and we're going to address them in a minute. But first, I want to ask you a question about, related to what you just described, this meteoric rise from like 2K to your name to 1 million. How did the value of money or perception of value of money change to you over time? Big.
So at first, money so when I started playing, money was very important. And not because money was important, but it was important to me to be independent. So I had a couple €100 per month that I got from like support, basically, being a student. And I lived very, very cheap. I paid €125 for a room, and I did not spend much like money on food. So this was like, I was living on like €200-300 a month. It was like very, very cheap. And the rest I put in my online account. So you can imagine my life at that time. It was pretty, so yeah, my dad actually gave me money for my driver's license, and I used that money to play online. I'm not sure I ever told him that, but so I made up some excuses for why I'm not doing it, but like I spent that money on playing online too. And it was basically this feeling that I'm incapable of being, like making my own, or like being dependent on something. And I just wanted to be able, like if I would be able to make €1,000 a month or whatever, like this would have been a big game changer for me. And that was really, that I could really tell in my mindset as well. The moment I had 50,000 euros in my bank account, so like 30, 40, 50,000, like it was a big change, absolutely big change. It was, I can fly wherever I want to. I can pay my rent for the next, 2 years. I don't have to worry about anything. I wasn't a big spender at that time. So it was just literally, I paid my couple €100 for my rent in Vienna. I was just having a good time. And this was huge. So this first step was really, really, really important. Then it didn't really matter for a long, long time. So from there till like $1 million or so, it didn't really make a big difference for me. It was just like, wow, now I have money, but I wasn't like, oh, this is what I'm going to do with it. It was just like, oh, wow, I have more and more and more money. And then it became more relevant because I so the next kind of thing was being able to buy my family a house. So I bought my mother and my sisters a house, which they're living in. That was a big milestone for me, but also it was not comparable. So it was like, oh, this is nice. Like now they're more independent too, but it wasn't the same step as the first one. And then I think over the last 3, 4, 5 years, when I made a lot of money, so especially in 2016, where I cashed for like 30 million or like 30 total, so like 20 in that year, it became like a burden, and I felt like a responsibility. Now I need to do something with that. I need to, invest it in stuff. I need to have a return. And like I was very quantified about it. And in the last 3, 4 years going through that process, I've realized I don't need any of that shit. I'm realizing now also, like, my spendings are going down like significantly. I buy less, I hoard less. Like I've done stuff. I've been partying, and I spent money in a club, and I bought, paintings, and I bought expensive clothing or whatever. And I was like, none of this really gives me anything. And I think I'm good at making these experiences, once, twice, maybe a couple of times, but then I'm good. Like I don't need that again. And so now I'm realizing how I prefer to actually just put the resources into the things that I really care about. Is like I prefer to do something with it where I have that feeling of like, wow, something is happening. When I go in the club and party, like I don't have that feeling. But when I push forward like a project that I really care about, then I do have that, right? Or when I support people that I think are building something great that I really believe in, then that's something I'm passionate about. So right now it's really shifting heavily from possession to just investing the resources into something that, something that's dynamic, something that's changing, improving our systems, like having a positive impact on the world. And that's really the biggest shift in my perspective on money. So I don't need to possess that much anymore. And it's becoming just more of a utility that I understand, or that I think I understand quite well, and that I see, but I'm not, my self-worth is not so bound to the amount of money I have. I think that's the biggest change.
Yeah. This is very interesting. I think so important for people to hear as well, because, for a lot of people, they could arrive at the same conclusion before, making 30 million or something. Because to be honest, this constant drive for making more and more money beyond the specific point, because there's obviously a point where money is quite valuable, right? Before you reach your independence, before you reach a certain level of security. But once you reach it, really the extra dollar is not, that important. And what I see with a lot of people, well, not a lot, but some people who reach out to me and say, well, listen, I want to make like $1 million playing poker this year. A great goal, but why $1 million? Why not 5 million? Why not 100,000? Like, where's the difference? Why are we drawn to these big numbers? Like, have you thought about what is it going to do to your life? Like, why is a million more important to you than, let's say, 100,000? Like, what's the quality of your life? It's not going to be defined by the extra 900,000 or something. You know, you can choose to live in a happy way, you know, without these huge numbers. Obviously, once you reach a specific level, because clearly if you're poor and you're struggling for, you know, just paying your rent and eating normal food, then of course that is sort of not a discussion we can have.
But I find this very, very important. This is where I would also challenge everyone, is exactly what you said right now. I think that the first question you should ask yourself is, what do you actually want to do? And there is no possibility to answer make $1 million. That's not something you can actually do. Right? Like $1 million is just a utility function. It's just literally a construct we invented to evaluate something. It's not something you can actually do. Like you can eat something, right? That's something you can do. Or you know, you can be in your apartment. Like there are certain things. Like I think the biggest mistake of the financial system or money as a utility is that it's being substituted with the actual need. So if you have the basic need to have shelter or to eat food or to be free, to be able to move, like these are actual relevant basic needs, right? But now it's the thing itself that you need, that you feel like you need, that makes you happy. It's not the money. The money is just a utility that we use as like an intermediate, as a trade-off to be able to evaluate these different types of things. But I think to ask yourself the question, what is the underlying, the actual thing that you feel like you want, that makes you happy, that you're drawn towards to. I think if you understand that better, then you are not getting stuck in this thing of just thinking about the utility. Because if you think about money only, then there's no ending, right? Because 1,000 euros, 2,000 euros, 5,000 euros, 500,000 euros, like 500,000 euros is just 100 times more than 5,000. But if you look at the underlying, does it actually make a change in covering your basic needs? Probably not. And I think that's where it makes a difference, where you don't need 10 houses. There's nothing in you that is saying like, oh, I need 10 different places to live in. You need you don't need to eat gold. Like there's nothing really fundamentally in you that is driving towards this. And so I think when you focus on this essential attraction of like, what do you want to do? What is the thing that you feel drawn towards? I've rarely met people that really do need money for that. Most of it you can do with pretty few resources. And I think that's pretty amazing, because then we can put our resources into advancing the course of like growing us, basically. Because you don't need to possess it. You don't need to have $1 billion that just lie in your bank account. It's just not necessary. Like it's not really bringing anyone further.
Right. Yeah, it's so important. Really, yeah. Go ask yourself that question. You know, it's such an important question.
And the thing is also, I'm not blaming anyone for feeling that way, right? Like I felt that way. I still feel that way in some. I'm scared, man. It's like I think everyone to some degree is like, when I'm losing money, I'm like, the first thing is like, oh, what if I can't fulfill my basic needs anymore at some point? It's absolutely absurd, but it's a fear that also comes up for me. Is if I lose 10% of my net worth, I'm like, wow, holy shit. Okay, what if what if I go broke? And I mean, now I'm in an absolutely luxurious position, but it's the same for I've experienced that multiple times, is that people around me amass money for the sake of security. So it's like, what if I need this at a later point in time, right? Like, what if in 10 years I want to buy a house with my family? So now I make 2 million, so then later I can do whatever I want. What if I want to do that? What if I don't want to work anymore? And it's like, my point is, I think if you try to make money just to be able to like take care of every potential situation that you might get in, that you might want to do, then this is a never-ending chase. This is a never-ending story of like, you might just need 100 million then, because what if you want to buy a yacht? Like, what if you want to have 3 kids and want to have a really, really expensive home? Like, so I think, my point is, what I've realized is that, when I put my energy towards the thing I really want to do, then this is the thing I directly want to put my focus on, and not try to make money and then try to do that, because the energy that is being lost in that process is absurd. So I would suggest to just take a look at that, and maybe there are things that you want to do right now that you can maybe start, even if it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, start doing it, and then maybe it develops into something, or you realize it's maybe not that important.
What a great point. And especially, for everybody who's playing poker, it's so much easier to implement that, because of course, this mentality of, okay, I'm gonna do the fun things when I retire is very common in like a normal career. In a 9 to 5, you have a boss, and you have obligations, and you don't see other way. In poker, a lot of people sort of impose on themselves these rigid schedules of, okay, I'm grinding 60 hours a day, or 60 hours a day, unlikely, but a week rather. So imposing these schedules that basically constrict what they can do with their life. But hey, you have the freedom to choose, and here the question again of how much money is needed for you to fulfill your dreams. If you don't really have any dreams, if you don't really have any aspirations of what you want to do with your life, well, that money is worthless in the end of the day, because you're more likely to burn out as a poker player, and all the negative parts that come with it. Because even if we think about it nowadays, right, with the virus situation, people are locked down, people are at home, nobody's going, well, most people
Everyone's
not going
grinding
out. So for poker players, it's something that we're used to, right? It's fine. I mean, for online poker players, it's like, I've been social distancing for a while now. It's kind of, I'm used to it. I can coach social distancing if necessary. But the reality is, a lot of people who are now working from home, right? How do they spend their time? Like, why is all of a sudden Netflix like breaking down because too many people are watching? You have finally the freedom to do whatever you want, in terms of acquiring new skills, acquiring new knowledge, and yet it's so easy to choose Netflix or something else similar like that, And to me, it just goes to show that, poker players been in this sort of social distancing part all their life, all their professional life in a way. And, what were, individual excuses for these people not to do anything or achieve anything beyond poker, building something that they're interested in. Just a thought. I'm not. We're not going to expand on that, but I definitely want at least some people to think about it. Like, how do you spend your day and why? It's so easy to just be stuck in a routine of, I have to grind the whole day. Why? Why do you have to do that?
I mean, I can speak for myself. When I watch streams or when I watch Netflix, it's because I'm scared to see what happens when I don't.
Wow.
Like what happens when I just sit there and I think about that stuff, right? Because I don't see when I watch Netflix or when I watch streams, like I don't see it as relaxing. I see it as distracting. So I'm it's like on a bandwidth where I can't really think about something else, but it's also not really engaging me much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just, have you tried, when was the last time you were sitting in a room like 12 hours with nothing to distract you?
Can't think of a day like that at all. I mean, not in the room anyway. I mean, it happens like, you're in a hospital or something, then yeah, tough luck. But then you probably have bigger things to worry about.
And I've done that end of last year, and it was so difficult. But what happened is like there were processes happening in me that I am so grateful for, that I experienced them, because like boredom is one of the most important drivers of creativity, right? Like when you're bored, you start thinking. It's like, what do I want to do? What can I do? What do I enjoy? How can I make something out of this situation that gets me forward, right? Then I started taking walks. I started drawing something. I started thinking through topics in my life that I started thinking about people I haven't thought about in a long time. I started reflecting on it was, I spent time with myself on things that I would never look at if I wouldn't have sat in a room with no internet, no phone for a full day, like 4 days,
So you did it
So
4 days in a row?
yeah, so I rented like a small container basically.
Wow.
It's in the vineyards, it's in nature, it's super nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to do more of that, like at the end of the year, to just do reflection time where I'm just considering different things and reflecting. So that was absolute, like for me, this was, my life is constantly on the wire, constantly input, constantly stuff. And then there I was like, I realized how powerful it is to um, to not get external input all the time, but to center myself again and realize, okay, let me take a breather, let's slow it down, and let me see like what's left, right? Like what do I want to do right now without all the distraction? And it was crazy because I was so happy. At first it was scary. At first I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? The time is not passing. It's like, and then it was like, very, very nice. So I think it's very great to implement more of this calmness, this self-centeredness, this self-direction as well into our everyday lives.
Wow, I'm really excited to try it out now. I'm probably gonna freak out. I can imagine how weird this experience would be, but it definitely could be very, very enlightening. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try it out. I see we have so many questions piling up in the chat, so we better start addressing some of them. We can't probably go through all of them. We have about 20 or so minutes left today, and let's do our best. And we'll see where the side conversations lead us. I think from all the questions that I see, there's one thing that I want to address as a general thing, because I think your experience is an inspiration for a lot of people, especially the young people. Of okay, I can do this. I can get into poker, hard work. I'm gonna get there. Quitting uni. Just shooting for the stars, in a way. In fact, we had Chris Moneymaker on the show last week, right? And we were discussing with that. Like, my opinion was that he created. Well, it's not my opinion. It's obviously he created the poker boom, the online poker boom, when he won the main event back in 2003. And I told him that I think you've created a new wave of inspiration for people by showing that the hard work and dedication can get you there. A completely different approach, which is inspiring to a lot of people. So let's address some of the questions related to that first, because I've seen questions in the chat along the lines of...
I would rephrase that actually,
all right.
because I think everyone who knows me very well, like most people who know me a little bit, think I'm really, really disciplined and hardworking. It's funny because I can really see that. So from the outside, it just looks like, I'm an absolute, like, at least that's what I've heard a lot of times is, that I just went at it over and over and just disciplined and just grinded and just studied, played. Like, I'm not that person at all. Like, I love to experiment. I love to try out new things. I quit a lot of things in my life. I've tried, I tried probably, 100 different things and done 3 things longer than a year. So this is the type of person. I love to learn new things. I get excited by something. I get inspired by something. And then sometimes it also stops. And I think what made me really good at poker was the passion I had for the game. It was really the enjoyment that I felt learning and getting better at the game. And with the different elements, like doing that together with people, but like the process I went through from, I was a lost 18-year-old college dropout, basically, being quite depressed and not really, like, just feeling like I'm worthless, to exploring, how I can manage my own life and what I want to do with my life, and also realizing that I can shape my environment regarding what I am passionate about. If I follow that, if I pursue that, then the environment shapes. If the energy just flows and flows and flows and flows, everything will come. And I think it's the opposite, actually. It wasn't forced. It was the reason, I think, why I became so successful was because I didn't try to be successful, at least not for a long time. I was just doing it, and then it looked like it is success, but for me it was just like, I woke up, and when I had breakfast, I was on Skype already, checking out if anyone posted any new hands, because I loved it. And when I went to bed, I was thinking about the hands I played today, and I was dreaming about the hands. And I wouldn't have done that if I wouldn't have loved it. I was loving this process. I loved getting better. And so I think that is the essence for me, is if I would have went in there of like, study was the opposite. Study, I went in and I had zero passion for it. I was just going in there and I was like, I need to do this now. I need to perform. I need to be successful at it. And it was terrible. It was painful. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to. Every time I woke up, I was like, it was difficult. I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to go. I got ill more often. Like, it was just a pain in the ass. Time went by slow and everything. And then with poker, it was different. So for me, what I truly took away from that is the absolute power of what can happen if you pursue that passion and let that energy flow, and just how that then will look like just disciplined success. But for me, it was a totally different experience. I didn't feel I forced myself. I just felt like I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. So I think that's how I would frame it differently.
Yeah, it's great that you brought it up and cleared this up, because, obviously all the other things that you were talking about also always revolve around, like, you need to love what you're doing in order to succeed there, right? And that was, as I understand, also one of the catalysts for your decision to retire from poker, because you realized that, this thing that I loved the most, what is required from me to keep going at this high level, I don't enjoy these things anymore, right? So, of course, for example, when people were asking in the chat, like, what would you recommend a 20-year-old, or would you recommend a 20-year-old to give it all in poker and, go for it, even though it's really tough nowadays? And I suspect your answer would be along the lines of, if you're passionate about it, if you love it, if that's what you really truly believe is bringing you joy, then go for it, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to add something to that is you don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to have it figured out. Like, the most important thing is motivational bullshit. I love that comment.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing, I think, is that you don't need to have it figured out right now. There's no reason to lock it down, If you feel like you want to do it right now, do it. And if you realize later, oh, that's enough, then you can stop. I think I probably went 1 or 2 years beyond that point where I felt like, oh, I'm actually not enjoying it that much anymore. And I continued because of mostly external reasons, financial reasons. I had this construct in my mind of, oh, now I'm good. Now I need to make money with it. And the more I was following this construct, the more also I went away from enjoying what I did. And then at some point I woke up and I was like, I hate this. I was literally, it was like, I played WSOP 216 and I was playing, 13 hours a day for 7 weeks straight because I had hundreds of thousands in side bets going. And it was like every day was a pain. I woke up and I was like, I don't want to play, but I went playing. And then after it, I was, I won all these tournaments, super, like 50 times more successful than I thought it would be. And I was burned out. I was like, I don't want to continue this. I don't want to do this. And that was the reason when I've realized this, wow, there's such a big gap between how I feel. So I've been so successful in terms of my goals and my understanding of success. I've been absolutely outperforming, but I feel like shit. So something is wrong. So I need to make a big shift now. And that's when I just decided, like, I need to stop and I need to see, because one thing, a big advice I would give is, if you can, try, and you want to stop with, or like you don't feel comfortable with something, try the other extreme, and then find your medium. So let's say, you drink alcohol 5 times a week, and then you're like, doesn't feel so good, like, I want to drink less. Then try not drinking for a month or 2, and you realize the extreme difference between the two ends of the spectrum. And then you can, say like, oh, okay, this was actually one situation where it's fine. And then maybe you drink once every 2 weeks, where it just feels good, and the rest you pass. But rather than, going from 5 times a week to like 4 times a week, or like 3 times a week, and then it's this really slow, long paced process. So that's where it really helped me to go to, like, I don't play right now. And whenever I missed it, I was playing. And when I didn't miss it, I didn't play. And that ended up being almost nothing. So then I just didn't play for like till today.
What an important lesson that is, actually, because what you illustrated is so common that human beings are not good at feeling the incremental change, difference from day to day. So having this contrast of I'm full in on poker and I don't play poker at all puts things in perspective, because then you can evaluate. Because of course, just trying to reduce slowly, you don't really feel the difference. I mean, you just adapt so quickly to the new routine. So how are you gonna? So yeah, wow, that's a great lesson.
And that, I think, also adds on to the question around if I would recommend a 20-year-old to give it all. Like, I think it doesn't need to be the extreme. I've had a lot of these conversations where people tell me they want to be the best. And then I'm like, okay, how do you work? And then they're like, yeah, I play 20 hours a week and I talk to my friends. And I'm like, okay, do you enjoy it? And they're like, yeah, I do enjoy it. And I'm like, then you don't want to be the best.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so true.
and it's the same. And the thing is, it's okay. That's my point, is like, it's totally fine. But this conflicting idea of the pressure me and a lot of other people feel to be something, you know, and then the actual thing that you want to do that you enjoy, like, that's not the same. It's oftentimes we feel this, like, I'll talk from my perspective. Oftentimes I feel the thing I want to do isn't good enough. So I'm building an image for when it's good enough, right? So if you just want to play poker 20 hours a week, just have fun and like dabble and be a break-even player, that's not something you tell your friends, right? Like, it's, what is that? Oh, like you lose money with playing poker, or like you're addicted, or you're a gambler, or it's like, no, you tell them you whatever, you build this image that you can sell to your surrounding as like something. And I think it's totally fine and totally okay to just express the thing that you feel good with. It's like, hey, I enjoy playing poker 10 hours a week just for fun. And that's it. Like, I don't actually really want to be the best. I don't really want to become a top player. Great. Like, I think that I think is really crucial, is to align what you feel like you want to do with what you're actually doing. The more difference there is, the more you will feel that it's the same with jobs. It's with jobs people work. It's like, how much do you do 40 hours a week of, like, if you work 40 hours a week, how much of that do you actually want to do? You know, and if the bigger the difference, the more you'll be frustrated, the more you'll get burned out. That's at least my observation.
Right. Yeah, it's I was trying to think of an illustration to that point, but slipped my mind. I had it and then it was gone. But one thing I want to add, not add, but sort of reiterate from what you already said is, it's okay not to aim for the stars. It's okay not to try to be the best. Somehow a lot of people who get in, they come with an idea of, it's really important for me to be super successful at playing poker. Whereas when you go to a conventional career, you don't see too many lawyers or accountants go into the career and say from day one, I want to be the best lawyer in the world. Like, it would be pretty weird, right? Some people obviously do that, right? But somehow just the competitive aspect of poker puts a lot of people into this winner or loser mentality of, okay, I have to be the winner. Success means I'm beating everybody else. Success means I'm making a lot of money. Perhaps that's not always good. I mean, for some people, for some personalities, that kind of motivation is definitely a great thing, competitive feel. But for some people, it's detrimental. You're actually hurting yourself by thinking in these terms.
I think it very depends on the environment, though, because oftentimes jobs, I think, have this connotation of they need to pay the bills. Whereas poker doesn't really have that connotation so much. And sports is again different. So I think you have all these different buckets where, sports can be a hobby, right? And then it's like totally fine. You can just do it for fun. Or if it's professional, then it's a different bucket again. Then there's more expectation around your aspiration, your performance. And poker, I think, is this weird, it's a different thing because you have this extra bucket of this super negatively connotated one, which is people lose, all their money, their houses, they're addicted, that kind of image. And so it has this shady connection side as well. And I think that's why there's more pressure to create this bucket around it that is, either more of a job or more in the sport direction. So I think that's why it's like becoming the best already implies that it's more of a professional sport, right? That's I think why this happens a lot, is if you just say like, oh, I just play poker 20 hours a week, then the first connotation, mostly at least here in Germany or in Austria, is like, okay, this guy is not to be taken serious and is probably addicted to gambling. So I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I see your point, and it definitely rings a bell. I think that's what happens to a lot, and there is this divide of whether you see it as a job or you see it as a professional sport. It's an important distinction. Fedor, how about we try one or two more questions, and I'll let you choose. You've seen some of them. There's a lot of topics that people want to cover, and unfortunately we don't have time for everything. But what would you want to talk about? I saw questions about your work with the mental coach. I saw questions about your work with Pokercode and what you learned from that experience. Many other questions as well, but these were just stood out for me.
You choose, Runchuks. It's your
all right.
It's your podcast, whatever.
All right. Whatever I think we talked about the mental game enough already. So let's skip that and let's talk about Pokercode, because that's obviously something, a business that you went into, a business you've built. So that's a transition from poker. And I'm curious to know what you learned from this experience and how that all your experience in poker translate to, now doing what you're doing there.
So Pokercode, every business I've built so far or was involved in, first thing I've learned and continuously learn again and again is it's always more complex than I think in the beginning. So basically I'm always underestimating the complexity. And the same way I'm constantly underestimating the complexity of life, but it's a pattern. So with Pokercode, I have really good partners. I'm very happy about that. So the site and the technical team and the production team and the operational team. So like I'm very happy with the people I work together with. And that was really important to me, is that the product itself is high quality. And I think my imagination in the beginning was that it runs all, that it's just like I just do it and then everything runs smoothly. And it was a bit different, where it was way more figuring it out in the process and learning a lot. It was a lot of learning about things, what people enjoy, how they learn. Like I was way too much going from myself, right? Like how would I learn? And it's not how a lot of other people would learn and do learn. And that's the biggest learning I've made with Pokercode, is that it's just not enough to just produce a course and give it to people and then they learn by themselves. Like it's just not how most people learn. And that's why we're developing more into becoming a community, is because what I've realized in the process is I really do care about the growth of the people. And then that's when it creates relationship, right? So we are engaging, we're interacting, we're in Slack, they post hands, like we give them feedback, we do webinars with them. We've done, a coaching session basically every week for the last week. So it's like a lot of for free. So it's a lot of value, I think, for people to engage with us, because I think it's the only way people get better. And so right now we're in the middle of changing the the company setup, the product as well, to something that is more sustainable, something that helps people grow over a longer term, like figuring out where they want to go and then implementing that into their game. That's what I care about. And it's not as simple as just launching a video course, and we're in the middle of figuring out and building the product in a way that it's able to do that in the long term. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. But I learned a lot on the way.
Wow, sounds really interesting, and people should definitely go check out the site. And it's funny because some people sometimes ask me, like, how come you bring other people who have like a competitive business or something similar on your podcast and talk to them? I don't understand that question. Like, to me, there are so many resources. Everybody should go for all the resources. If you're really serious about it, go and try everything and find your way, and I think in poker, it's so good to see that so many people sort of bring the community together, and, people like yourself who achieved great success try to put the knowledge back into the community sort of and help other people on their way to their success. So it's definitely great to see that. Guys, so many questions. It's incredible. We're going to have,
one last one.
Let's have one last one, and hopefully Fedor comes back for part 2 one day, and we address some of the questions that you had, and of course, also some of the questions that you had about how to study and how to build your bankroll, etc., etc. You probably can find answers in some of the other episodes that we did on the show, not with Fedor, but with other people who also know their stuff. So let's ask Fedor about. It's just the last question that I saw in the chat. What do you want to change, improve, and develop outside poker in the world? Mm-hmm. I think it's a big thing, interesting question.
Yeah, it's actually the thing that continuously is forming more and more in my head over the last years. I basically, the transition I made from poker was more in the entrepreneurship side. So I started investing in companies, investing in general. But in that process, I've exactly asked myself that question a lot and realized a lot of stuff. And I've realized just the utility I don't really care about. Doing something to make more money with it defeats the purpose for me, because then I'm like, what do I do with more money? It's like I already, I don't know where to put it towards to. And so it's basically, for me, it's really about what do I care about, and what I actually really care about is I care about improving systems. And just to make an example, is I really care about the educational system, for example. What I'm working on right now is creating a place where people who are passionate about improving systems share and collaborate and work together, and they have a platform. So a physical location where these projects and these people who work on that come together. So very specifically, that means the way, like, I see so much opportunity for us to improve. It's not that I'm bashing what's existing. It's just more like I see the amazing things we've done in the past, and I feel we get stuck too often being scared to innovate and to try out new things and to change. So whether that's our health system or our nutrition, food, education, our decision making systems, our political systems, some great mechanisms and some that are definitely improvable. And so that's something I really care about.
Oh, that sounds like a great field to apply your experience, especially like we already talked about. You created something in poker that wasn't common. You've created a system, you've created a way forward. So I hope you find a similar size of impact on some other field outside poker. That would be pretty cool.
Would be awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you all for participating in the chat. It was great. I'm sorry that we couldn't cover all of that. As always, we're gonna have this episode uploaded on YouTube in about a week and a half or so. So watch out for that. You will be able to see it on replay, and we'll post all the links to Fedor's social media and all the other stuff in the description, so you definitely can follow him and find out more about the stuff that he's doing right now. And Fedor, what a pleasure it was. So many great topics. I feel like I'm going to watch this episode myself again, just because I think some of the lessons that you've shared are so deep and so important. I'm so glad we brought it up for all people to see. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. I wish you all a great evening.
All right. Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.